to your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just some high-flying, ran fast vertical stems and professors from Penn watching eagles eat and pray like Pazookies on birthdays. It's Philadelphia. Marissa, Bo, and Zach kicking it. Cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some Birds with Friends. The early bird gets the worm but prefers getting turned like a turn on some Birds with Friends. Marissa, Bo, and Zach are here to squawk. Don't miss the mistress talk on some.
I don't call it the off season. I call it the non-playing season.
Is that what you say when people, normies ask you about what you do in the off season? You say it's not the off season, it's the non-playing season.
I don't correct them, but I'll call it the non-playing season.
Okay.
I'll feel like there's the playing season.
The NPO.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends, Monday evening, 9:02 p.m. on the first day of legal tampering period. Bo Wulf, Marissa Dunn, Zach Berman here to talk about a newsy day for the Eagles. We're going to stick to business in this episode. We're going to keep it nice and tight. We're going to talk about the news that you need to know. No mistress talk. No sitting or standing to pee talk. This is an Eagles podcast. We're going to focus on the big news, and there has been plenty of news today. Expected changes for this Eagles team. The exodus has begun, Zach. Javon Hargrave, the big ticket player, leaving to go play for the San Francisco 49ers. 4 years, $84 million, the reported deal, $40 million guaranteed. TJ Edwards goes to Chicago. If only there was a place on the internet to read about TJ Edwards' love of Chicago, growing up a Chicago Bears fan. Google it if you can. He goes for $3 million or 3 years, $19.5 million, $12 million guaranteed. Marcus Epps leaves as well. Goes to Las Vegas to play for the Raiders. 2 years, $12 million, $8 guaranteed. And Andre Dillard goes to the Tennessee Titans. Bit of an odd match, you might think, considering the player and the head coach there. But 3 years, $29 million for Andre Dillard. But that's not all. Some people staying with the Eagles. Jason Kelce, Zach, announces that he will play again. He will return. He took some shots with Howie Roseman at the Combine, so they've been sitting on this news for about 2 weeks. And also, the big ticket, ya boy, Brett Toth is back in Philadelphia. He resigns after he was released a couple days ago. Everybody else, Fletcher Cox, James Bradbury, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Robert Quinn, Isaac Seumalo, Kaiser White, Ndamukong Suh, Boston Scott, Zach Pascal, Miles Sanders, Gardner Minshew, and Brett Kern yet to agree to terms. Zach, everybody wants to know. It's Monday night. We're coming off a Zach Berman basketball game. How'd you guys do?
We lost. A bad loss. A game of all the games that I've played this season, this was the one that hurt the most because it's a game that we could have and should have won. Well, yeah, but we were not overmatched in this game. We did not play well enough to win, and this one hurts. I saw Josh ask the stat line. The stat line's 0-1. That's what,
of course, of the Inquirer.
Yeah, that's
reporter.
what we were. We lost. That's
the important questions.
That's the only stat that matters tonight is we lost.
How many
the listeners want to know how many points you had.
Zero.
How many shots did you take?
I tried to contribute with my defense tonight, and I actually, but you know what? I didn't play well enough. Bottom line.
How many shots did you take?
I took one. I took a runner that I thought I was going to make. I didn't play a lot of minutes tonight.
I am so baffled by this whole experience. Like, you wait all week, you get 1 hour to work out to go play basketball, and you take one shot.
Bo, I think we should go next week. What are you doing next Monday night?
We should do
next week's the semifinals.
It's
the semifinals. So we got to.
Marissa, should we go and call the game?
I think we should. Where is it, Zach? Maybe we could get a whole audience there. Yeah. We've been trying to do a meetup, right?
This
would be perfect.
We don't have to have a meetup there, but no. Big day for
the game.
I thought I could contribute tonight in ways other than scoring and
talking smack.
No, but look, we were not efficient enough on offense. We did not rotate well defensively, and we had too many empty possessions. But that pales in comparison to what occurred with the Philadelphia Eagles today, which is the mass exodus as we expected. And there's still some some shoes to drop here.
Yes, I'm expecting. I'm hoping that we're going to get some news in the middle of the program. That'd be fun to be able to react to. But Zach, let's go one by one here, or at least position by position. So let's start at defensive tackle because that's the big one. Javon Hargrave going to the San Francisco 49ers. Big money deal, $21 million per, $40 million guaranteed. He's 30 years old. It seems pretty reasonable that this was beyond what the Eagles could pay. I guess my question to you is, do you think that if the Eagles had not made the decision during the season to let everybody hit free agency that Howie Roseman talked about, to not upset the locker room apple cart, do you think that they would have Javon Hargrave signed for the next couple of years?
That's a really good question. I don't know if they would have given that extension, but certainly, I mean, 21 million.
But I think that theoretically, if they had offered in like week 5, Hargrave would have taken a little bit less, right? Like
I would imagine, like going into the season, 17 or 18 probably would have been the market.
To me, he is the one guy who I think is gone because of that decision, which is fine. Like I understand that's the decision they made, but I feel like he's the one guy who they would have preferred to not let out the door.
Yeah, I wonder if Gardner-Johnson was in there too, right? And Gardner-Johnson's not out the door yet, but if they had given him a contract in week 3 that was safety money, which he wasn't getting offered in New Orleans from what we understand, perhaps that would have been something that could have occurred. But yeah, no, you are correct about Javon. I thought that Javon was a player that they should have prioritized, but we both wrote it was that there was a number that would be too much. And I think 21 million for annual value is too much there. I thought 17, 18 would kind of be the line of demarcation, if you will. And clearly they exceeded it. And not to say that I saw this coming, but when Payne got that contract last night, I was like, oh, defensive tackles are getting paid. I know he's old. I know Javon's older than Payne, but 11 sacks from the interior gets you paid, and it got him paid.
Does it matter to you at all? I know we talked about this on the back and forth that's on the website now, but does it matter to you at all that he signed with the Niners?
It does not. Now, certainly they're among your chief competition in the NFC. I expected the Niners to have a really good defensive line regardless, right? Whether it was Hargrave, whether it on the interesting
This is a little bit like, sorry, go ahead. You finish what you were saying.
Oh, no. I mean, not to get into the 49ers roster building here, but this is kind of like them admitting that they shouldn't have traded Armstead, right? If they had just re-signed Armstead, this is them admitting the Kinlaw pick did not work out, right? They trade Armstead, they draft Kinlaw, and now they sign someone over Kinlaw, but that's neither here nor there.
It actually reminds me of the Eagles taking Landon Dickerson because it's their defensive line with Chris Kukurik. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Okay.
He's like the Stoutland of defensive line. Like he gets the most out of defensive linemen. You saw like Hassan Ridgeway is getting paid because of him. He revitalized Arden Key's career. Like T.Y. McGill is taking impressive snaps, and for them to take that and apply it to a guy who's already good, it's like they're trying to instead of trying to make the most out of like replacement level players, they're going to see what they can get with a really good talent. And like it's like we had the argument with Dickerson, like why would you spend a second round pick when you can get good level play? Where like the beauty of Stoutland is that you can get a good level play from a Jack Driscoll. Well, maybe you're trying to go from good to great, but it's an interesting use of resources for them. I think it's heavy for a 30-year-old player, but it's going to make the defensive line very good.
2 quick follow-ups. First off, thank you, Human Dialogue here. I meant DeForest Buckner, not Arik Armstead. When they traded Buckner,
they have, that's right.
Yeah, to the Colts. The second, I ask you framed the question to me. Does it matter where he went? Let me frame it to you from a 49ers perspective. Do you think to them it mattered where he came from? Do you think part of their paying was to weaken the team that beat them in the NFC Championship?
Only because what's the cool way to say it? Like that the Eagles are in their head, that there's like a cool hip way to say that,
cool.
Right?
You're cool. Paying rent? I don't know.
Yeah. The Eagles are living in the Niners' heads
Yeah,
rent
they're
free. So
paying
maybe
rent,
it
yeah,
does. Maybe
okay.
it does play some role there. I think it matters more to them than it does to the Eagles. Like,
I mean,
the
good for
Eagles aren't
Javon.
thinking about the 49ers. They don't
Yeah.
care about the 49ers.
You always hear in the NFL about the second contract. It says something when your third contract is your biggest one, right? So good for him.
Yeah, and credit to the Eagles for making the initial contract signing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in terms of the defensive tackle, like where they go from here, our boy, Zach Allen, just as we started the podcast, signs a big money deal with the Denver Broncos. And it's actually not as spicy as I might have expected. I think it was like 14.5 per, which is
Broncos getting all this money. Okay, I'm curious.
Yeah, this is the first move the Broncos have made that I kind of like. They spending all this money on like, mediocre McGlinchey and Ben Powers, and then they're signing Alex Singleton. Alex Singleton got about as much money as TJ Edwards. TJ Edwards gets 19.5. Singleton gets 3 for 18, and then Duke Riley also gets re-signed by the Miami Dolphins today. Somewhere in like whatever group chat he has with his buddies, Howie Roseman is like sending these numbers, and he's like, "I told you guys, Flagel stunk." Like, these are the 2020 Eagles linebackers who couldn't do anything, and all of a sudden they're day one guys.
I hit the under. I set the over under at 9:30 before you would make that joke, and I said under. So yeah, I hit the under. That was easy money.
That I was going to make it a Flagel.
Well, no, that you were going to make an Eagles 2020 linebacker.
Well, I tweeted about it, so that's not that much of a stretch.
Exactly. I just didn't know how soon you would pull out that material.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we got there.
So we got there.
Okay.
Yeah. So Zach Allen goes to Denver, which I'm glad you
that
told me
leaves
that.
the Eagles
I didn't see that. That's a spot I could have seen them pivoting to.
I think there's a good chance now that Fletcher Cox comes back, if they can agree to a number. I don't think they're going to be super involved in Draymond Jones. He's the only other like premier young guy on the market.
Yeah, I would watch Cleveland there.
I think my guess here is maybe Fletcher's back, and then it's like another rotational guy that they sign on Saturday or next week. They see how this shakes loose, and then you're talking about Ioannidis, who we talked about, or Poona Ford, or Morgan Fox, or my guy Nathan Shepard, something like that.
Yeah, I hear you there. I always wonder if there's a trade market candidate that we aren't talking about, that we aren't looking at. That, I mean, it was Tim Jernigan in 2017, right? I don't know who that could be. I see in the chat, Jalen Carter. Bo had a terrific mock draft trade on Saturday. The thing is, you can't count. You can't count on that because you don't know. I mean, and a talent like that, you don't know when he's going to go off the board. But yeah, you wonder when and if there's a trade candidate we're not aware of yet.
Linebacker TJ Edwards leaves. Kaiser White's still out there. I think my guess for how the Eagles approach this is either they sign an old guy or a cheap guy. Like now, Eric Kendricks signed right before we started as well, so that leaves, I think, Bobby Wagner as the guy who's out there that we talked about as like how he makes a splash possibility. But otherwise, I think it's right back to the same playbook of see who's available in a week.
If I can, just as I don't mean to circle back to the previous conversation, I have one more name I wanted to throw at you to see if you think interesting old guy or washed. Calais Campbell.
Calais.
Yeah.
I mean, like a really cool player. I'd love to get to cover him for a year. He wouldn't qualify for the comp pick because they released him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Could be
like him or Cox. Would you? I mean, just to mix it up a bit. Would you?
Just to change up. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you go with Campbell?
And he'd probably be a little bit cheaper because he's 4 years older, 5 years older. I think that is not the Eagles' MO. I think what Howie would do is sign Fletcher Cox.
Sign Fletcher Cox. Okay. So you were asking about linebackers there. I agree.
I think it's right back to the same. playbook, which is fine. I've seen a couple people write this, listeners or fans, that how terribly the defense performed in the Super Bowl is sort of making this exodus easier. That it's hard to get worked up about losing all these guys who were part of this defense that couldn't get like a stop on a single play when it mattered the most. And I mean, beyond the sentimentality of it, I think that's right from a roster building standpoint. Like, I can't get too worked up about having to rebuild this defense that is going to have to take a step back anyway, but that's fine. Like, as I keep saying, like the path to continued Super Bowl relevance for the Eagles is all about having an elite offense. I don't think that, not that defense doesn't matter, but I don't think that you need to be worried about it too much.
Yeah, I wouldn't get hunkered down in recency bias there, from like a big picture perspective, that just because the Chiefs did that, it means let them all go. I think that the Eagles feel a great deal of confidence in the fact that they have players on offense locked up. I think that the Eagles were always going to view this draft as a way to replenish the defense. They've had a lot of money tied up in the defense in recent years, and I think you're going to see that kind of shift to the offense now, where A.J. Brown has a big contract. Jalen Hurts is going to get a big contract. Devontae Smith, they have to pay in a year or two. He's going to get a big contract. And I think a good deal of these picks over these next few years are going to go to cost-controlled defensive players. I do think, and I've seen this point made elsewhere, and I agree with it, that one of the lessons from the 2017 team was they got old and slow quickly and expensive quickly. And I think that's often apparent on the defensive side of the ball, where on defense in particular, you want to be young and fast, right? So I think that it's okay to let some of these guys go. I mean, there's not a contract today that they lost someone on where I'm like, man, the Eagles should have signed him to that deal. I think TJ Edwards signed a fair deal. I just don't think the Eagles are going to sign TJ Edwards to that kind of contract.
Yeah, it wasn't a crazy deal.
Yeah. But it's not.
Yeah.
It's not a deal that I would sign.
6.5 a year is not. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that they can. If Nicole, I tweeted this out, and
I mean, Marcus Epps for 4 guaranteed. Like, I feel like that is a deal that they would have made in September. I mean, maybe a little bit less, but yeah.
I tweet this out, and I feel very strongly about this. That look, like TJ Edwards and Marcus Epps are the poster. I don't want to say the poster men, and I was going to say poster child, poster men for what you try to tell these down the depth chart players. Like, you come here, you earn a spot on special teams, you get some time on defense as a reserve, you become a starter, and then you go get paid. Like, that's what the Eagles' blueprint is at linebacker, for instance. But both those are sterling examples of it. But it's much easier in theory than in practice. Or it's incumbent upon the scouts and it's incumbent upon the assistant coaches now to find your next Marcus Epps. Maybe that's Reed Blankenship. Maybe Reed Blankenship's your guy. Find that next TJ Edwards. Maybe it's Christian Ellis. Maybe there's someone else there, right? This is where I vividly remember where I make it sound so dramatic. I was in the Indianapolis Convention Center talking to Howie Roseman like 3 years ago now about linebacker. And he said some positions you just need to trust that you can draft and develop, right? And the Eagles haven't been very successful drafting and developing in that spot. But TJ Edwards is an example of how it's worked. Nakobe Dean needs to be an example of how it can work. And Reed Blankenship can be an example of how it can work. So it's fine to let guys go. Now you got to trust your scouts and trust your assistants to coach them, to find them and coach them up.
I think that's right. I think TJ Edwards is an awesome story, and you don't then pay for TJ Edwards. Yeah. You try to find the next TJ Edwards. And I think Javon Hargrave is a little bit like that. You try to find the next Javon Hargrave. That's why I thought that maybe Zach Allen would make some sense.
Yes.
This is the position they're in, and those are the positions that they devalue for good reason. I think it all sort of makes sense.
But, and a huge but here. If you're
Deebo Samuel wise,
sorry, if you're going to take that approach at linebacker and to an extent at one of your safety spots, you need to be awesome on the defensive line. and you need to be awesome at cornerback, right? Like it's all where you allocate your resources. They're allocating their resources to their pass rush. They're allocating their resources, I think, to corner, and you need to be really good at those spots. So it can't be the type of season where you're not getting pressure from the interior, and then you're not good at linebacker and you're not good at safety. So that's where I think I'm fascinated to see what they do on the interior defensive line. Of course, the name we haven't mentioned yet, or I haven't mentioned yet, I have to listen back to see if you mentioned it, was Jordan Davis, right? They traded up. Jordan Davis was a high draft pick, and they traded draft capital to go get him. He needs to be a difference maker for this team. The same way that the 49ers needed Kinlaw to be really good, the Eagles need Jordan Davis to be really good for them.
I think maybe we saved this conversation for a slower time, but I mean I think there's a real chance that last year's draft class is not very good, and it didn't matter last year because they weren't expected to play, but I mean they played fewer snaps than any other draft class in the league by a mile, and like if Jordan Davis is not who they think he is, and Nakobe Dean is not ready to go. All of a sudden, that was it was not a very good draft class.
Because that's a first, a third, and they trade a third in the Jordan Davis deal.
Puts their defense in a really bad spot. Yeah. I mean, Jordan Davis he didn't have a single quarterback hit last year, and I know that he wasn't asked to rush the passer a ton, but it was like over 100 pass rush snaps. There were only a handful of guys in the league who had more snaps than that and didn't hit the quarterback. We talked about, I mentioned it in the back and forth today, but at some point, it can't just be about projection and all the tools that he's got in his body. I mean, 4 years in college, he wasn't a pass rusher, and he never affected the quarterback. As a rookie, he didn't affect the quarterback. Part of that is the role, and he wasn't on the field in a lot of obvious pass rush situations. That's fine, but there have always been these explanations. Like it's time for him to show it. I mean,
and that was the very first question.
March is not the time for him to show it, but
no, you're right. And that was the very first question. Do you think this guy can affect the quarterback? And they were very confident that yes, he can affect the quarterback. So we're going to have to see. But you are correct. He hasn't shown it to date, and he needs to show it. I mean, it's hyperbole to say he's the most important player on the defense next year, but he's one of the guys who is absolutely in the crosshairs for the Eagles.
Got some breaking news in from Ian Rappaport. Caden Ellis is headed to the Falcons. So
okay.
Yeah.
The Ellis reunion does not happen in Philadelphia.
A lot of NFC South picking the bones of their
Ryan Nielsen.
They're taking over the AFC East in terms of leading the league in cannibalism, I guess.
Well, Ryan Nielsen
is
the defensive coordinator in Atlanta now. He came from New Orleans, and then their GM came from New Orleans. It's interesting. I thought that
the Seahawks are expected to sign Draymond Jones.
Ooh!
Wow. Okay, not the Browns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Serves you right for trying to break Browns news when you have Marissa on the podcast.
I wasn't trying to break Browns news. He went to St. Ignatius. He's from Cleveland.
Yeah, I saw a lot of reports today that he was the favorite to go there.
He wanted to, actually. He said, "Come get me" or something. Yeah.
That's good. Seattle signing Draymond Jones opens up my my possibility for them to trade down for the Eagles to get Jalen Carter.
There you go.
Boom.
And Vikings are signing Marcus Davenport.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Marcus Davenport's comp coming out of college was Neil Hunter. That's interesting.
Are they gonna pay him more or less than they paid a blocking tight end today?
I think they're paying him $13 million. What I saw.
That was the weirdest move of the day, I thought. Let's talk about the secondary now, Zach, because we have not talked since the Darius Slay trade discussion broke. What is your understanding of why that happened, how things stand, and what else is going on? Because James Bradbury and CJ Gardner-Johnson both remain on the market at 9:26 p.m.
Yeah. So I don't need to recap what happened. I imagine at this point everyone who's watching us or listening to us knows, but I'll say here. So ESPN, our friend Diana Rossini reports on Friday that the Eagles have given permission to Darius Slay to seek a trade or I shouldn't say seek a trade, to talk to teams about a trade. Here's kind of the behind the scenes there. Okay. The Eagles need to restructure Darius Slay's contract in order to open up cap space this year. Darius Slay wants a contract extension with the Eagles. He has said this publicly. Okay. And my interpretation of now Slay is on record saying he did not request the trade. He wants to finish his career with the Eagles. So this is basically the Eagles saying, if you think you can get this number, go get it. Right. That's my interpretation of it. That Slay wants an extension that the Eagles aren't willing to pay. Okay. And the Eagles are basically saying, if you think this is what your market is, go out and find it. And my guess is they don't want to trade Slay, but that they are confident that he's not going to find this number and that they can find a resolution to keep him on the team next year. I don't know if they want Slay on this team in like 24, 25, right?
Yeah, I don't think they want to add another year.
I think they just want to restructure it, put the bonus money into the void. They have voidable years there.
Right.
They structured the contract to do this. And look, Slay's operating his leverage. If I was Slay, what I would be doing is saying, give me an extension, right? Instead of me restructuring, give me an extension. And it's just they'll see what the market is. I mean, you saw last night what Jalen Ramsey got traded for. The Eagles, so you can't expect much in terms of trade compensation for the Eagles. And whether Slay,
who is 3 years younger,
yep,
and a slightly better player.
Exactly. So, and it would hurt the Eagles cap wise to trade him, but I mean, you could argue it would hurt the Eagles cap wise even more to extend him, right?
And to some degree, like the Eagles can't. I mean, they can't do as much. It affects what they can do in the beginning of free agency until they have a Darius Slay resolution, because it's the difference of like $10 million of cap space.
Yes, exactly. And that's the we always talk about. Well, I shouldn't say we always. Last year, we really explained why they restructure, and that they specifically put these voidable years on, and they restructure deals with intent. They structure these deals with intent to restructure, but it takes a player willing and complying to do it in order to restructure. And a player can operate his leverage and say, give me incentive to restructure, right? Or give me incentive to help you out here. And that's I think what is happening now.
And then at safety, Zach, Gardner-Johnson's still out there. Jesse Bates signed with the Falcons for $14 million per year guaranteed. Or it was 464, I think. Is that what it was?
I think it was more than 14. I think it was 16, wasn't it? Guaranteed?
Yeah, 464 is 16. Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. So you would think that that's the top of the market.
Yes.
The longer this goes on, I sort of expected Gardner-Johnson to sign today. Maybe the Eagles are working on bringing him back. What do you think is the state of things there?
Yeah, so I was watching the Falcons closely, actually, for the reason you mentioned in passing before. There's a lot of Saints people in that Falcons building. The Falcons had a clear need for safety. I thought they were going to go for either Bates or Gardner-Johnson, and I thought maybe this Saints background would steer them toward Gardner-Johnson, but clearly they valued Bates more. That's a big number. I didn't think the Eagles would go above 14 for Gardner-Johnson. And I say that number not because that was the tag number, that was the Marcus Williams contract last year. If that's the price range you're talking about, I definitely think the Eagles could be in it. If you're talking 15 or 16, I could see that being too burdensome. So I don't know. Look, I gotta say, I thought the Bears were a team to watch here, and then they could potentially move on from Eddie Jackson, but the fact that they signed 2 off-ball linebackers today and they pay big money to Tremont Edmonds makes me think that maybe they're not paying a safety.
They're kind of a weird deal for the Bears. Like it's like they're following the Chris Ballard playbook. They're putting all their investment in guards and linebackers.
Yeah, I was on Chicago radio today, and they kind of asked me about that. And I said, like, yeah, I didn't expect them to sign 2 linebackers, right? But I referenced actually that superlative piece that you and I did on Friday, where I said if the cap didn't exist, like if I didn't care about resource allocation, the player that I would target in free agency is Edmonds. And the reason I say that is because he is different, right? He's 24 years old. He's 6'5", 250, runs sideline to sideline, is durable, can tackle, 2-time Pro Bowler, improved in coverage. I like if I'm paying big money to someone, I want that guy to be different. And Edmonds is different, and he's really young too. At one point, he was the second youngest player in the draft. So I don't. But in conjunction with TJ Edwards, it's kind of interesting because they like Jack Sanborn too. So now they have 3 linebackers. And they were asking me on Chicago radio where I thought Jack Sanborn's going to play now. I was like, I don't know, strong side linebacker, I guess. But that's neither here nor there. I was a little surprised by the route that the Bears took, but I do like Edmonds. And people were talking about Cincinnati with Gardner-Johnson, and I could see that, but they just drafted Dax Hill. Yeah, they just drafted Dax Hill. So unless they like Dax Hill in that slot type role for them, I don't know what they do there. There's a few other teams that you could pay attention to for him, but
what if Sean Desai thinks Avonte Maddox is a better safety?
I mean, we've been talking about that for a while.
I know, but they actually played him there last year.
Yeah,
and he played well. Nickels are easy to sign.
Or draft. Yeah. Look,
it's a possibility.
I would be on board there. And Maddox's contract is actually really good for our safety.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm Maddox in that case, I'd be like, hey, I signed this deal, right? Why? I could have made more money as a safety. But
all right, last departure to talk about. Then we'll take a break and come back and talk a little Jason Kelce and Brandon Graham, since we didn't talk about that when it happened. Andre Dillard, 3 for 29 for Andre Dillard. A very interesting deal, an interesting bet for the Titans to make. I alluded to it in the open. It feels like an odd fit personality-wise between Andre Dillard and Mike Vrabel, but interesting.
Yeah, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, and of the 3 of us, I'm only speaking to Marissa here. Raise your kids to be left tackles, right? Because left tackles get paid, even when you haven't had much starting experience. You're drafting. You're signing Andre Dillard right now for the upside. My guess is what's it? Rand Cathron has had a good grade on him coming out of college, and you're talking about a first-round pick who just doesn't have tape right now in the NFL. So, or enough tape to give that type of money. But if he plays like a first-round pick, then it's a relative discount for a left tackle. So I don't know how to evaluate that. I simply didn't see enough of Dillard. You watch every one-on-one. What's your take on that?
It's interesting because I think that it's the kind of deal that with a deficit of information, I could talk myself into. Jordan Mailata is really good. He was in a tough position and he played okay with his snaps. Like the Eagles held on to him for a reason. You can talk yourself into the upside. This is a guy with a chip on his shoulder and he's healthy. It's a bet worth making. And I would probably rather have him than like pay a ton of money for Mike McGlinchey or
you're so down on McGlinchey, man.
Or whoever, but a guy who has already proven to be just okay. But I also think that he's going to disappoint on that contract. I like Andre Dillard a lot as a person. I hope he does well. He's a really interesting guy, but I find it hard to believe he's going to be in a better position to succeed than on the Eagles offensive line anywhere else, right? With Jeff Stoutland and playing alongside really good offensive linemen. Maybe you could say there was like the pressure of having to replace Jason Peters, but just having watched him a lot over the summers when those reps are live, I think he's going to be fine. I think he'll be just fine, but not like great.
Yeah, look, it's always the type of thing, and I've fallen victim to this. I'm a sucker for draft pedigree. I admit it. I'm a self-confessed sucker for draft pedigree. That's like I'm always like in free agency. Well, this guy's a former first-round pick. Maybe it was the situation. Maybe it was the circumstance that let's try to extract every bit of talent out of him. It's the same reason why in college football, like if I was a college football coach, I would just go to the transfer portal, and every former top recruit, I would try to bring them to my program. And I know it's completely arbitrary. Just because someone valued someone as a first-round pick one year doesn't mean he's a good starting caliber player, and you shouldn't fall for draft pedigree. But in free agency, I tend to think that maybe you can extract something that the other team couldn't.
All right. Let's take a little break. Come back. We'll talk Jason Kelce, Brandon Graham, Brett Toth, the new coach we learned about today. Very handsome. We'll get to that on the other side.
We all want to look good and be comfortable, but finding that combination can be a challenge. The clothes are too tight. They're not your size. They don't look right. Well, let me tell you about Roan, because I recently put in a new order. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, as my wife will quickly tell me, and Roan stepped up to the challenge. Roan's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man. And here's why. Roan helps you get ready for any occasion with the commuter collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Roan commuter collection. Roan's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident without the hassle. With Roan's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the product. It's that easy. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll smell fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Roan is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. I personally like the versatility. It works for a work event, a date night, or just hanging around at home. The commuter collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to roan.com/BWF and use promo code BWF to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/BWF and use code BWF. It's time to find your corner office comfort.
Back on Birds with Friends. Bo, Zach, and Marissa. Marissa, how was the Big Ten tournament?
It was good, aside from the fact that obviously Maryland did not win. But it was a very cool environment. It was my first time in Chicago. So, yeah, it was a very fun weekend. I'm excited for March Madness this weekend. I know Zach's excited too. So should be a good few weeks ahead.
A big Maryland West Virginia game, which I don't know if our audience realizes this or not. Like a very odd rivalry.
Yes.
I
do not like West Virginia.
Is it something? Can you explain it to me?
I don't know why. I mean, I think it's just the geography. It's pretty close. Yeah. But like even in football, like Michael played them several times. I guess maybe probably more the ACC. And I know they weren't in the ACC, but like earlier in his college tenure. But yeah, it's a rough place to go to watch a game. I mean, great loyal fans, but they're a little rough out there. But yeah, so big matchup. A little worried about it. Not gonna lie, it is the very first game of the tournament. I was telling Bo. So yeah, Thursday 12:15 tip. But yeah, I'm excited. I love this time of year. So I think we should have a bracket competition.
I've been rooting against West Virginia basketball ever since 2005. They gave me one of the worst losses of my life as a fan. Triple overtime, second round.
Triple overtime? Yikes.
Pittsnogle
and Gansey.
I remember that one. So a few things. First off, for the Maryland West Virginia thing, and this, I mean, this isn't ignorant. Like I'm aware of geography, but until I was living down in Washington covering the ACC and was aware of this Maryland West Virginia rivalry, I actually wasn't aware of like how well, they're obviously border states, but the western part of Maryland is basically more like West Virginia territory than, say, Delaware territory. You tend to think of Maryland as, an Atlantic coast state, but Maryland's a big state. So obviously Maryland being the state school, you draw a lot of people from the western part of the state who are right on the border with West Virginia. That's number one. Number two, to what Bo said, there was I covered 3 consecutive NCAA tournaments, and I randomly got I randomly got assigned regions, and every year West Virginia was in that region. And the player on that team who I remember talking to the most is Joe Mazzulla, who is now the head coach of the Boston Celtics. But I mean, Joe Mazzulla was like the awesome quote.
Another big flex.
Back then.
As Marissa yawns.
No, it was a cough. I muted myself. Yeah.
People in the chat saying we should do a Birds with Friends bracket challenge.
Yeah, I'm in. We could make one.
What game are you most excited about, Zach? Who do you got your eye on?
Which game? I mean, there's the
do you have any takes?
I loved UCLA this year in the games that I watched them, but now they lost Jalen Clark for the year, and that really hurts them. Alabama's kind of a bad karma team, but they're
and Maryland would play them in the second round. So
okay, yeah, they're really.
You're
talented.
Rooting for them?
No, I'm not. Arizona.
You were happy to see Chris Beard land on his feet today. I heard.
Arizona's a fun team.
Big Ole Miss fan.
Arizona is Tommy Lloyd has just done like an awesome job there, basically just bringing the Gonzaga international strategy to Arizona, which you might think would be an odd strategy because Arizona can recruit anyone, you would think, right? But they are awesome to watch. And so I like Arizona, but the Big 12 and the SEC have been so good this year. As far as the game, I thought Memphis kind of got hosed a bit in the seeding. Houston's a fun team to watch, but the Penn State game is going to be awesome. I think that's
can't wait to watch more Big Ten teams disappoint in the tournament again. Great, glad we got 8 more Big Ten teams to watch drag the pace of play down and disappoint and go out in the first or second round. That would be great.
I feel like personally attacked by that comment because Maryland usually falls in that group. But I mean, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, but it's a new era with Willard.
Yeah. I mean, they live and die by the 3, so we'll see. But it should be a fun week ahead. I'm going to the second half of this episode. I'm going to try and set up a ESPN group, and I will put it in the YouTube description for anybody who wants to do a BWF bracket challenge, and we will figure out the prize at the end of that one too. How's that sound?
And shout out to both the Princeton men and women who are going to the dance. Had a chance to meet DeFomp Warren C on campus at Princeton on Friday.
What were you doing at Princeton on Friday?
Grinding a little tape with Coach Flynn and an unnamed third person.
Wow,
football guy over here. Look at that. Yeah, watching. Yeah, literally grinding the draft film. Right, he's got to get his buckets ready. Fun. Yeah, and care to share. Care to share publicly which wide receiver is your crush right now?
Of the guys we watched, I would say Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jalen Hyatt were my 2 favorites. The guy who I didn't like was the North Carolina guy, Downs.
Josh Downs.
I liked Zay Flowers. And who else am I thinking about? I left as we
Quentin Johnson.
Huh?
I'm sorry, Quentin Johnston.
Oh, yeah, I was really underwhelmed with Quentin Johnston. Really underwhelmed, but we'll see. We'll see how the buckets play out. They were doing a little more quarterback work before I had to leave, so we'll have to turn into a different podcast to see what they thought about that. All right, Jason Kelce, Zach, announces today that he is returning. I'm not effing done. I mean, is that what it? Because are those the exact words he said? Because I would hope not.
Why? Because should be finished. Is that like in terms of correct English or?
No, I'm trying to make a done joke.
Oh, okay.
Moving on. It seems so. They shared the video on the New Heights podcast of him and Howie Roseman having a shot of mezcal, which I feel like I could do like 45 minutes on that video alone. But that tells you that Kelce told him 2 weeks ago at the combine that he was coming back. So that's nice from like the Eagles got to plan things out territory. But not entirely surprising. You and I both had him at number 1 on the Flu World Order rankings, but obviously a huge deal for the quality of the offensive line and every expectation now that Cam Jurgens moves to right guard.
Absolutely. And first off, I mean, huge for the Eagles, right? Jason Kelce, besides being an iconic person in Philadelphia, is still an extraordinary football player, and is the odd player that seems to get better with age, right?
Not as he says it.
Not as he says it. I saw a clip. I actually didn't see it until today of John Clark interviewing him late in the season where Kelce was saying he's not a Hall of Famer because he said that a Hall of Fame player
He's talked about this before. Yeah.
I haven't heard him
scheme
say
independent.
This.
He said this.
Yeah, scheme independent. Yeah. And that he did say to me one time at the Pro Bowl down in Orlando, he said the 2 players he's played with in his career who were scheme independent, who were like would be great no matter what scheme they were in, was Jason Peters and Fletcher Cox.
Right.
And so he said, so he said that he wouldn't be great in any scheme, and so he's not a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer. I think if he retired this year, he'd still be a Hall of Famer.
I think this last All Pro put it over the top.
Exactly, and he's huge for the team. Bo, of all the guys on the beat right now, has probably written the most about it. Bo and Jeff McClain have done the best Kelce work of anyone. I still think the best story that's been written about Kelce to date, and this is no knock on Shield, who did a really good one as well, was Bo's piece about a year in the life of Jason Kelce's body. If you're a newcomer to Birds with Friends and you weren't listening back in 2019, January 2020 it was, make sure you check that out because you see what he goes through physically. But I mean, this is
would have been tough to squeeze that one into 3,000 words, but
sure, you're right. But sorry, I shouldn't be laughing here. But point being that if the only outcome, I'm not being like an Eagles homer here. I'm not belittling the losses that they had. They've lost key players. I get all that. But the outcome of Jason Kelce returning should not be ignored. And it's also not a zero-sum thing with the cap. Like there's a contract they need to give Jason Kelce. It was a weird thing. Had he decided not to return, it would have voided on June 2nd.
Right. They would have been post June 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So he technically wasn't an unrestricted free agent, but he wasn't going to return on the contract that he was on because there was this automatic 2024 guarantee at a huge number, basically. So they have to give him a contract, and they've been paying him like the top center in the league now for the past few years, and I imagine they're going to do so again. So this is very much a signing, and this is a huge signing because he's that good of a player. They signed probably a guy who you could say is the best player at his position in the NFL, and just because all of those years came on the Eagles, it shouldn't be taken for granted that he's back with the Eagles.
And we talk about, the lessons of 2017, 2018, trying to avoid sentimentality. And I think that Jason Kelce and Brandon Graham are different. I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but those guys are different than, being overly sentimental with Javon Hargrave or, TJ Edwards, guys like that. I mean, these guys have been here for so long, and that they are, like for Brandon Graham, for instance, like he is content in his role as a rotational edge guy. Like you can, you're not worried about how that's going to play out. It's a position where you need a lot of bodies. Jason Kelce is still playing at a high level. I think it's okay to be sentimental with those guys. And I was surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised because I know that Brandon Graham was going to become the longest tenured player, Ty Bednarik for the most seasons in Eagles history, but he and Kelce now will be the longest tenured teammates in Eagles franchise history.
Good stat there. I saw you tweet that out. I think that the sentimentality, it was actually reverse sentimentality here, benefited the Eagles. I think Brandon Graham's sentimentality benefited the Eagles.
I think you're right.
Because I think Graham could have commanded more money on the open market, but he wanted to come back to Philly. I saw him on Thursday night at the Maxwell Awards,
And you couldn't get the scoop. I had to give it back after the last time. I had to do it again. Shout out to T-Mac.
Shout out to T-Mac. That's right. Shout out to Brandon Graham for giving me to a beat writer too. I respect that. Even though it's competition, but yeah.
Did you end up seeing him at the place that you recommended to him for the kids?
No, Reed was sick this weekend. So we were supposed to go laser tagging on Saturday, but we didn't want to get the laser tag facility sick, right? So I see the truth said great video of Jalen and Sirianni too. Yeah, I was there. And good speeches by both of them, by Sirianni.
Who gave the better one? Because you asked me who was going to give the better one. Who did give the better one?
Jalen's was more quotable. Jalen had a mic drop line. He ended his speech by saying, I did not walk by the fire just to smell the smoke, right? Or I did not walk through the fire just to smell the smoke. I need to pull that up, but that was a good one. I thought Sirianni's was really heartfelt. He spoke about his learning mental toughness from his father overcoming cancer. And he spoke about how he cried 3 times the night of the Super Bowl, the national anthem when everyone saw, after the game. And then he said when his wife hugged him and said she was proud of him. And he said that was, that's touching because you see how much work goes into it. And he spoke, and I mean, Marissa, of all of us can empathize here, not to put Marissa only in the bracket of the wife of a player, but he talked about how much she had to move throughout his career. And so I thought about Marissa, like having to move a lot over these past few years, as Bo chronicled as well. But he actually said the line that they were living in California. He took the job in Indianapolis. They got off the plane, and it was like snowing or raining, and he didn't know if she was going to come with him. So that I thought Sirianni's speech was really heartfelt. But Jalen also said too that he said he cares for football the way he cares for his lady, with like tender love and care. So that was a nice drop by Jalen there. I thought they were both good speeches, and Brandon Graham gave a good speech too, as well. He was honored as
Jalen
as well.
Shouted out his girlfriend in the speech, right?
Yeah, that's
the first public acknowledgement.
Yeah, when he said his lady. Yeah. But it was a nice event. And then Drake May won the College Player of the Year. The Freshman of the Year. Caleb Williams won the College Player of the Year.
I'll tell you what, that was my actual biggest takeaway from watching.
Is that Drake May's awesome?
Well, Drake May looked good too, but Caleb Williams, I mean, that guy rules, man.
Yeah.
That guy's better than everybody.
I agree. And then, it was. I've never been to Mohegan, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, what'd you think? You play
nice facility.
Play the tables?
Did not. Was there for work and then drove home afterwards. Some of the people there were like, "You're driving home after this?" I said, "Yeah, I'm not getting a room. Got the kids tomorrow."
Exactly. We're not going to get into mistress talk tonight.
As opposed to other nights.
Yes.
Okay.
This is a news episode.
Okay.
All right. Brett Toth is back, Zach. Big takes on that.
There had to be a contract thing with the top 51 or something like that. Is my guess. I don't know the mechanics of it, but Brett Toth is back.
I think Brett Toth is going to be on the team next year. That's what I think.
If fans are following the Andre Carter story with Darby, I spoke to Andre Carter at the Combine, and he said he's been in touch with Brett Toth. Him and Brett Toth spoke for a few hours about the situation, and Brett Toth and I spoke a few times during the season about the ruling with Andre Carter. So certainly something to follow as well. That's a flex.
You talked to him several times during the season. Yeah.
Of all the things I could flex, speaking to Brett Toth a few times during the season. Okay.
Oh, well, all of a sudden he's not worth flexing over?
No, I just think that's just a normal conversation over the course of being a beat writer. It's like talking to Michael Dunn if you're a Browns writer. Yeah.
What a pleasure that would be. That would be worth flexing over.
Exactly.
Now, Zach, you love nothing more than a local guy coming home. So tell us about TNN, the new Nichols coach.
Yeah, Coach Williams, right? From the Bears. This was reported by Courtney Cronin from ESPN. And is it I get the whole thing here.
He's been the quality control coach for the Bears for the last several years under Desai. And of course, Desai was a quality control coach for a very long time.
So it's Rondell Williams, who he's from Chester. Went to he went to Westchester University. He coached at a few local schools, including Temple. He's been with the Bears, and yeah, seems like an interesting story. Joe Santoliquito on Philly Voice had a piece on him 2 years ago or so, or 3 years ago. So I tweeted that out today. But looking forward to meeting him, and always like when you bring in someone who knows where good cheesesteak. Okay.
That's not what you were going to say?
No, so who knows where good cheesesteak is. I was going to say one of my favorite Ed Orgeron lines was, "I'm the first coach at LSU who does not have an accent." And I was going to say when they hire someone who does not have an accent, but I actually don't know if Rondell Williams has a Philadelphia accent or not.
Okay.
Is it Ronell? It's Ronell. That's why I was like, is it Ronell or Ronell?
I don't know the answer. I would guess Ronell too, but
yeah, okay.
It's
I look forward
pure
to
speculation.
I look forward to meeting him.
Marissa.
Mm-hmm.
Now Michael is still a restricted free agent until Wednesday, right? So we don't know.
Yes.
We don't have any movement yet, right? We got to wait until Wednesday for
no movement. But his agent is making lots of moves with other clients. Mike Garafolo just tweeted.
Of course.
Yes, Mike G with the inside scoop that DeMarcus Walker is also signing with the Bears.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. Bears spending a lot of money this offseason.
Well, they had like twice as much cap space as everybody else.
Yeah. So, yeah. All quiet over here. Michael was very happy we were doing a pod tonight because he got to go to the golf cave. So, yeah, workout by day, golf by night. He's living the life.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I look forward to Garofalo breaking that news whenever it happens.
He's got a couple more months to get all that in.
Yeah, we started our baby registry today. That was
nice.
Finally, everyone's been asking. I'm like, yeah, we've been like really busy, but it's creeping up. July's getting close. So
how did he shoot today?
I don't know. He's there now.
Oh, okay.
That's why he was so happy. He was like, "Oh, you're doing a pod tonight? Okay." And then he's on his phone. He's like, "All right, I have plans tonight too."
That's funny.
So
daylight savings is good for golfers, right? Because
it's a simulator.
Yeah, it's still evening.
Yes. Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah. No, it's a simulator. He could barely hit it when it's light out, let alone in the dark.
Quick, because you mentioned Garofalo, I gotta give a shout out. Mike's done an awesome job today, and it brings me back. Mike and I are former teammates, and we had to, I covered free agency with him, And it was the type of thing where you go over everyone on the roster, and he'd be like, "All right, you call these agents, and I call these agents." And Mike it was like there was like 3 agents for me to call. Mike was like, he was so locked. He was awesome at his job.
It was very cool. I mean, I've had NFL Network on literally all day today, especially since I do the Jets podcast. So waiting on whatever the heck's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. And I did think it was very cool watching all of them live work the phones. How the tofu turkey, whatever we call it, is made behind the scenes. I don't know if that's the journalism nerd in me, but I liked that aspect of the live broadcast.
I'm partial to Mike though, and I think Mike does the best job of staying on the segment while reporting the news. Mike doesn't give up on the segment. He's a total pro. So.
Yeah, busy day.
Not to say the others aren't. Just Mike's my guy.
Sarah taking a stray.
No, not that. Oh, Mike's my guy.
It's fine. You got to do it. I mean, you're telling the truth.
We did get a comment in the chat that I thought was interesting, and we've seen a lot of quarterback money. How do you think any of this impacts a Jalen Hurts contract?
Question. I don't think it does.
Forward.
I don't think it does. I think the only thing that could affect it is the structure of the Lamar Jackson contract. But I think the Eagles know what it's going to take to pay Jalen Hurts. That they're not trying to get a discount on Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles are ready to give a big deal, and it's just a matter of timing. And it's complicated, obviously, by the other potential quarterbacks. And Jalen Hurts certainly has the leverage because he's a second-round pick. I mean, Burrow and Herbert. There's the 5th-year options there, so they don't have as much leverage as Hurts does. But I think it's just a matter of when, how much, and what the structure is. The only complicating factor could be if like Lamar Jackson gets a fully guaranteed contract for more than Deshaun Watson. But I imagine that's also the reason why he hasn't signed with the Ravens yet.
Mm-hmm. So do you think people want to know why we haven't heard anything? You think that
I just think that the nature of timing. Yeah.
Yeah. They got too many other things to do at the moment. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to, no, it's a question worth discussing. I just think it'll get done. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
It will get done before training camp. I feel, I believe, I don't know when in that the Carson Wentz contract was the first one that
I think it'll get done before the draft.
Okay.
Maybe not. But that's what
the Wentz one was in June.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was actually, was it June 11th? Was it on Bo's birthday?
Was it?
I don't know.
Don't you think they want to get it done before Burrow and Herbert though?
Yes, I do.
So that's why I think there's a little bit of a pep in their step potentially. Quackatology wise, I believe we've got 3 of the final 4 still alive, including the winner, Byron Murphy, who I think is the last young guy on the market the Eagles would be interested in, like big money deal. Now, we've talked about the comp pick stuff. Hargraves is going to probably be a 3rd round qualifier. Mm-hmm. The ones from today, Edwards and Dillard will qualify, I think, at the 5th or 6th round level. And then if Gardner-Johnson and Bradbury go, those ones you're probably looking at 4th round levels, and you can only get 4 comp picks. So the Eagles can still sign a guy who's a qualifying comp pick, but you cancel out the level of guy you sign cancels out something similar. So they're not going to sign a guy who's going to cancel out that 3rd one, that 3rd rounder. They don't want to cancel out the Hargrave pick, but you can certainly sign a 4th round guy, because there's not like you're not gonna take a worse player because you'd rather have a 4th round comp pick than a 5th round comp pick, right?
Well said.
So they've still got room to maneuver.
And to also bring it back to Bo's mock draft on Saturday, the Eagles can trade the 2024 picks, knowing that some of these comp picks are coming.
And I think they're going to do that.
Yeah, they don't know what round they're going to land in. Right, they can't trade a comp pick until it's awarded to them. But they can trade their other picks with the confidence that they'll have a comp pick.
Yes. And that's why, the specifics of the deals that I had in that mock draft, are not perfect. But I think the ideas behind them are both something that will be on their mind. One being, using one of their 2 second-round picks from next year to potentially move up from 10. And I also think that they have the a pick swap of 10 and 30 for 5, 6, or 7, and whatever the corresponding second-round pick is. I think it's a nice little extra bump that you can give to move up. And then I think they would like to move into the middle rounds by using one of next year's 4th-round picks, or 4th or 5th-round picks, because you have those comp picks coming.
And they could trade for a player as well. I mean, I don't think the Eagles want 12 picks next year, right? I mean, you don't want 12 draft picks anyways. But I wrote this, and I strongly believe this, that the Eagles have a type in trades, and it's players entering the final year of their rookie deals. Last year, A.J. Brown, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. This was how they drafted. This is how they traded for Jordan Howard. It's how they traded for Ronald Darby. It's how they traded for Tim Jernigan. This is the type of player that they look for. And so I would pay attention if there is a team that signs over someone who's entering the final year of his rookie contract, or they give money at a position, then, and there might not be an extension. That's where you see if the Eagles could strike.
We were batting some of these around over text, and you wrote about it in your plan. Maybe a Jeremy Chin from the Carolina Panthers, who we know the Eagles were interested in when they drafted Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, coming off a bad year, or I shouldn't say bad year, a down year. And the reports out of Carolina are that they're going to move him into the box, right? Almost as a linebacker. But when you're kind of moving the positions of a player, maybe you would also entertain trading him. So certainly something I would look at if I were Howie. And we've talked Howie. The thing that keeps Howie up at night is not knowing someone's available. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, people were saying like the league didn't know he was available.
Yeah, speaking of that, I'll respond to your Bears radio flex. I was on a Niners radio program today,
nice.
And they asked me about the possibility, given the Rams fire sale, that the Eagles would make a call on Aaron Donald.
I don't think Aaron Donald's getting traded. Do you?
I don't think so either. But I think, but I responded with the exact thing that you just said. That if Aaron Donald is available, Howie Roseman's going to be tossing and turning to make sure that he knows that's true.
Yes.
Because he loves making a splash.
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, I can understand. I was in the car coming back from from basketball tonight, and there was a trade in my fantasy baseball league. And I was like, wait, I didn't know Marco Luciano was on the market like that. I could have trumped that deal. Okay. So I can
apples to apples. It's the exact same thing.
I understand. I mean, I need to be more like Howie. I need to just throw all these offers out, even if they're crazy.
There you go. All right. We said we were going to keep it tight. 67. It's tight enough, right?
It's very tight.
We'll probably be back tomorrow. We'll see what happens. So nothing happened during the show. A little disappointing, but that's okay. Jason Kelce's back. Brandon Graham is back. Brett Toth is back. TJ Edwards, Javon Hargrave, Andre Dillard, and Marcus Epps are gone. Everybody else still out there. Exciting first day of tampering here at Birds with Friends. So for Zach and Marissa and all the sickos and Duke, we thank you for listening. We will talk to you later this week, maybe tomorrow. And as always, we love you.